What's up, guys, and welcome back to White World Friends English. Listening is super important in any language. Whether you are looking at a short 5-minute video on YouTube or an hour-long meeting, you have to be able to understand the concepts that are being communicated.
Listening is integral to understanding the situation and comprehending the information. So you've got to have that in order to understand paralanguage. You've got to have it to understand meaning, context. All of it comes together in order to be able to understand well.
The best way to actually listen is to take notes.
Which is difficult for a lot of people. We don't really like to take notes because we learned it in school. Many of you, just like we did in school, learned how to take notes while listening in order to grab the information, to listen to the information, synthesize it, put it into our own words, and then regurgitate it onto a test. More importantly, taking notes in your own language is far more easy than it is to take notes in your second or third or fourth language. So if you are trying to learn how to take notes in English in order to be able to understand well, that's not easy. It's really difficult to be able to take notes in your target language, whether that's English or some other language. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways to take notes while listening. Different people are drawn to different methods of taking notes, and different methods apply to different situations. You're not going to take like really detailed notes for a YouTube video listening practice, right? So we've got 5 different methods for you today to help you learn how to practice listening.
And a big deal with listening and taking notes is keywords. Find the keywords, try to understand them, and try to draw relationships so you don't have to waste your time with all the these, a's, and the ands, and the ofs, all those words, all the other words. Try to find the keywords. Basically, the point of taking notes is being able to not translate while you're taking notes. That's why you need to find those keywords.
Yeah, you don't need to be listening and then translating in your head and then writing down again in English or in your native language. If you are trying to learn English and to listen well, you need to hear English and write English.
Right.
No translating in your head. And that's how you get your time faster in standardized tests as well. So without further ado, let's get into some of these methods.
All right, so the first one that we're going to talk about today is the mind map. So
concept mapping, sometimes people call it that.
Yeah, basically you take a big idea.
The title of the lecture, maybe it's the major section of that part of whatever's being said. Maybe the meeting is about this in a business meeting. Maybe it's about this topic here. But the problem is when we speak naturally, we don't follow a linear, very structured pattern like a lecture is. No. We tend to have what we call rabbit trails. So when everybody's talking, maybe at first they do a lot of small talk. Maybe they start talking about a problem and then you should write down the topic or main keyword there and connect that to the main bubble. But maybe then they give a detail and then go off on a story from way back when.
Yeah.
Or maybe they tell a joke or something like this. And it doesn't seem to make sense and it doesn't connect back until maybe later on somebody refers back to it and somehow it does connect.
Yeah.
Well, then you would need to be able to draw a line back. So if you're in a meeting with several people and it's getting kind of messy, mind maps are a great way to do that because you can take these keywords, just a word or a phrase that helps you remember what was said at the time, something quick that you can write without having to think about it too hard or stop listening in order to write. But then you can draw the lines afterward or during if it makes sense and you have time. Have a quick break to be able to draw those lines and what connects where and when.
And what's really good about that is as the mind map gets bigger, you can insert really crucial information, numbers specifically, or references or names. If it's saying you're talking about a new project and it says there's high risk, it's a very risky project. Well, if somebody starts giving some evidence for that, you can put that around the risky bubble so that you can show that relationship without actually having to do a whole lot of writing, thus saving you time and getting those keywords and that detailed information.
Right. So mind mapping is a great way to put together information that might not seem connected at first or might have lots of different ideas going on. And then immediately afterward is most ideal. You will sit down and write out fuller notes while you're not trying to listen at the same time.
Right.
The next method we have for you is a 4-square grid. map. And the idea here is going to be short standardized testing where you have a short listening, maybe up to 2 minutes long, that you're going to sit down and listen. And usually it's between two people and they're talking and they've got something to say. Maybe they're having a debate. Maybe they are giving an opinion and the other one just rebuttals that opinion. Maybe they say, well, that's great, but here's my opinion. And they each have supporting responses.
What you will do is you will divide your paper into 4 squares. That's the name. The top left-hand square, you'll write the first speaker's main point. And then below that, you'll write their evidence or examples or an outline, details of the information. And then on the top right square, you'll write the responder's main point and their details.
The breakdown of a fluent response is typically main point, 3 supporting details, whether that's evidence, background, data, some kind of details or memories in the past or experiences. They're going to support that with 2 to 3 different things. So in a standardized test where you're doing some listening, you can listen for 2 to 3 supporting details for the speaker's main point. Then the responder will often rebuttal each detail, like in a straight line usually.
Yeah.
But if not, then they're going to make their own rebuttal or their own opinion statement, and then they'll support their own. So there's different ways that this can be done, but this format is very helpful for very short listenings with just a comeback between 2 different people.
So the next one is the outline. A lot of us have used the outline in our classes, and because it's a way to pack as much information as you can into a single sheet of paper. And normally it's very structured, but in natural conversation, it's really hard to get a nice, clean outline.
Right. So we suggest the outline method for lectures, speeches, things that have been planned ahead of time before they were said. You can do the outline somewhat cleanly for 2 different speakers or 2 different people talking about the same topic. But it's really difficult to do more than 2 people because then you're going to have to make separate headings for each one.
Yeah.
And if they both speak kind of back and forth in the same way, it's just very difficult to capture that well.
Yeah.
So for structured listening, especially in an academic setting or a work setting, you can put the main points as subheadings. So the topic would be the title of the whole outline, major headings, and then just inside that, you can put a few more details to support those major headings, and you can even put more detail to support those details,
right,
should that be necessary. Outlines are fantastic for capturing so much information, but the problem with them is that you can capture so much information. Many people get lost in writing way too much, and they stop listening because they're busy filling out their notes. So you can shorten this by making symbols and doing arrows and color coding and all of these things if you can do that quickly while still actively listening. But for the most part, this is something that you've got to be careful with. And as you get better and better in English, you'll be able to do this better and better. But as intermediate speakers or low advanced, I do not suggest this method for everything.
One solution if you find yourself writing too many words in an outline is leave some spaces in between some areas that you know that you missed a little bit of information. Maybe a word, just a keyword or 2 to help you remember when you come back and fill those notes in. Or maybe you can compare it or ask a friend that's listening to it as well. Either way, try to leave some spaces in there while you're doing your outline so you can go back in and fill those in.
And immediately, a lot of us want to overestimate our ability to retain such details till after lunch. It doesn't work, never works. Really, this lifestyle is very much like go to class, get out, go to the next class,
right,
or go do something else, or catch up with a friend or something. So definitely don't overestimate your abilities. Just fill it in right away afterward. It really takes only about 5 minutes.
Yeah. The next method is called the Cornell method, and it's kind of like the outline that we just discussed, but it does a lot more breaking down the information. So it lets you fill in the information as you go, but then it gives you a little bit more freedom to organize it after the fact.
Yeah. So what you will do with your note sheet is you're going to divide your paper into 3 parts. You're going to have a small sliver of a section on the left as your cue section. You're going to have the main part of your page as the outline section, and then at the bottom you're going to have a section left for summary. Now, the Cornell method is really great for helping you take down that information in outline form, however complicated you want to make that, or however many symbols you want to use, but it helps you review. Because immediately afterward, you'll sit down and you'll take a look at those notes and you'll divide it into its major sections. And you'll do this in the cue section by either noting when tone changed, or noting when there was a pivot in the discussion, or noting when a new example was up, or what parts of the lecture are supporting the rest. This is a great way to just break down that outline and therefore that lecture into its major parts so that you can see how it's structured, how it came together, how the professor assigned it, and what they were actually saying. It gives you a chance to really sit down and think about how it all comes together, therefore you can understand it. Now, at the bottom, in the summary section, the idea is after taking all those notes and writing all those cues and breaking it down into its parts, you are then going to synthesize, or you are going to summarize in your own words. In 3 to 5 sentences, you should write down in your own words, ideally without looking at the outline at all, what that lecture was about. What was the point of the lecture or the speech? What was he saying? And then once you write that down, if you want to go a step beyond the Cornell method, you will write down your own response or your own rebuttal to the lecture, or you can speak it as well. This is a great way to practice really going the extra mile with your listening practices. The next one is the Venn diagram. Many of you are familiar with this. It involves a lot of circles.
Yes, so you get these circles, you put them together, and you have them overlap. Because honestly, when you compare two things, there's a lot of stuff that is the same, but there's a lot of stuff that's different. And so instead of wasting your time by doubling up saying, this one's blue, this one's not red, this one is red, instead of that, you can make a Venn diagram to show those relationships without having to write extra words that you don't need to. You can use it with 2 circles, you can do it with 3 circles. It's a really, really easy, quick way to use those keywords that we were talking about, but also some symbols or icons to help you compare 2 different views, especially in like a meeting or a dialogue between 2 people.
It's in a very visual pattern. This one's mostly used for comparison between people, things, ideas, concepts, whatever you want to say in that way. Comparing apples to oranges, for example, you would write down all the things that are different, and then in the overlap, you will consider the things that are the same. So ideally, when a Venn diagram is completed, you are going to see various things that are completely different from one another and how they complement one another as well, which this is also a great way to prepare for a response in order to be able to talk in certain debates, to be able to write down a paper, whatever it is. This is a great way to brainstorm in order to visually put together information and keywords and details that you know and facts that you know, and being able to put them into words.
So that's it, guys. Note-taking can be so frustrating when you are trying to learn a language, especially in English and another language. But the more you practice, the more helpful it will be to you. Be patient. It's a skill. Listening is truly a skill. And so you guys, as you practice note-taking in different forms, using different methods because there are different circumstances, be patient with yourself and celebrate the wins as you continue to try to grow in your listening skills.
So later this week, we are going to release our first long-form conversation using more jargon so that you can practice whichever note-taking skill you choose to practice at that time. And we are also going to present to you notes that we choose to take afterward as we're editing so that you can see the conversation and you can see the notes that we've taken in order to compare it to your own. So looking forward to seeing you guys for that one.
All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.